This prayer will heal the pain you don't talk about. Pain has a way of hiding in the places you never let anyone see. It settles into the corners of your mind during quiet moments, disguising itself as strength, pretending to be control, convincing you that speaking about it will somehow make you weaker. You carry it like a private burden, tucked behind your smile, locked behind your responsibilities, buried beneath the parts of your life that look steady from the outside. But inside, there is a weight pressing against your spirit, a pressure that builds when you lie awake in the dark, replaying moments you never resolved and wounds you never admitted were real. God has seen every one of those moments. He has watched you push through days when your heart was tired, nights when your thoughts grew heavy, mornings when your spirit felt numb. You never said a word, yet heaven heard everything. Hidden pain does not disappear because you ignore it. It grows roots. It shapes the way you think, the way you trust, the way you protect yourself. It makes you cautious when you should be open, guarded when you want to be free, quiet when you need to be honest. You learn to survive by burying what hurt. But survival is not the same as healing. Survival keeps you functioning. Healing makes you live again. And God is not calling you to carry something He designed to lift. There are moments when the weight inside you begins to shake, not because it is getting stronger, but because your spirit is outgrowing the pain that once controlled you. God does not expose hidden wounds to shame you. He reveals them to free you. The pain you never talk about has already spoken to Him. He has felt the tremble of your heart. He has heard the cry behind your silence. He has stood with you in the exact moment you felt most alone. You may have convinced yourself that no one would understand the weight you carry, but God understands it perfectly. He knows how long you have held it. He knows why you never released it. And He knows the exact place where it started. Nothing about your pain is invisible to Him. You do not have to find the right words. You do not have to explain the timeline. You do not have to justify the tears that show up without warning. God already knows the wound beneath the surface, and He is ready to touch the part of you have been afraid to face. Healing cannot begin until truth is acknowledged. This moment is the turning point. This is where God begins to lift what has been crushing you internally. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you how He speaks into the very pain you never allowed yourself to express. There are moments in life when the deepest wounds speak the loudest, even though your mouth never opens. You may not put your pain into words, but it echoes inside you in ways you cannot hide. It shows up in the decisions you hesitate to make. It shows up in the way your chest tightens when certain memories surface. It shows up in the quiet moments when everything around you is still, yet your heart feels restless. That restlessness is not random. It is the place where God begins to speak. God often whispers into the areas you avoid. He does not shout over your denial. He waits for the moment when your defenses lower, when your distractions fade, when your thoughts slow down enough for your spirit to hear what your mind has been avoiding. The silence you fear is the space where His voice becomes clearer. When you feel that sudden pull to pause, that unexpected wave of emotion, that shift in your breathing, you are not falling apart. You are being called inward, where healing begins. People often assume God speaks through loud signs, dramatic events, or spiritual intensity, but He frequently speaks in the quiet questions you ask yourself when you think no one is listening. Questions that rise from the parts of you that are tired of pretending. Questions that challenge what you have accepted as normal. Questions that reveal you are not as healed as you want to be. These quiet questions are not weakness. They are the first signals of divine intervention. Hidden pain distorts your inner compass. It makes you doubt what is true, question what is good, and mistrust what feels safe. But God begins correcting that compass by stirring a new awareness. He brings clarity in flashes. He brings conviction in moments that seem ordinary. He brings truth that disrupts the comfort of your walls. When you sense that internal nudge to reflect, when a thought unexpectedly pierces through the numbness, that is the Spirit guiding you toward what needs to be acknowledged. God never exposes a wound without offering healing. When He speaks into your silence, He is not reminding you of the pain to punish you. He is naming what hurt you so He can remove the power it still holds. He speaks into the ache you never verbalized. He brings light to the memory you tried to bury. He reaches into the place where your heart learned to go quiet. In the silence, He restores your ability to feel again. You may not have shared your pain with anyone, but God has already been responding to it. Every moment of heaviness, every wave of emotion you could not explain, every sudden shift in your spirit. Those moments were not random. They were heaven's attempt to draw your attention back to the wounds you stopped acknowledging. Because healing requires your awareness before it can receive God's power. Stay close, because the next part will reveal why some wounds refuse to heal until you allow God to touch the parts of you you have spent years protecting. Some wounds don't fade with time. They adapt. They learn how to disguise themselves inside your habits, your reactions, your silence, and your strength. You may think you moved on because you no longer talk about what happened, but the heart remembers what the mouth refuses to acknowledge. And when a wound is never addressed, it begins shaping the way you live without you noticing the transformation taking place. A heart that learned to hide becomes skilled at creating distance. It pulls back when someone gets too close. It avoids vulnerability, even with people who only want to love you. It builds strength in all the wrong areas and weakness where strength should exist. What feels like self-protection becomes self-limitation. What feels like control becomes emotional imprisonment. And this hidden pain continues influencing every decision you make from the shadows. Most people hide their pain not because they are weak, but because they once survived something that made them believe they had no other choice. Maybe you were taught to stay quiet. Maybe you were punished for expressing what you felt. Maybe you were abandoned at the moment you needed comfort the most. Maybe you were made to believe that your emotions were too heavy for others to hold. So your heart found a way to protect itself, even if that protection cost you your peace. But a wound that is hidden cannot heal. It only hardens. It grows roots. It shapes beliefs that God never intended you to carry. Beliefs like, I must handle everything alone, or if I open up I will get hurt again, or no one will understand what I feel. These beliefs become internal barriers that even prayer struggles to break through, because you have not allowed God near the place where the wound lives. God does not force His healing. He waits for invitation. He waits for permission. He waits for you to stop pretending that you are fine, so He can restore what has been silently breaking you. He sees the tears that never fall. He hears the questions you never ask. He notices the tension in your chest when your past gets close to your present. He understands the hidden battle beneath your calm surface, and He knows exactly how to touch what you have spent years protecting. Healing begins when you allow God to enter the place where you stopped trusting, the place where you buried disappointment, the place where you closed the door because it hurt too much to keep it open. When God reaches for the wound, He is not reopening it to increase your pain. He is revealing it so it can finally breathe. He is uncovering it so it no longer controls you without your awareness. He is bringing light into the room you left in the dark for far too long. And once He enters that place, transformation begins. The heaviness loses its strength. The memories lose their power. The pain loses the hold it once had over your identity. God does not heal from the surface inward. He heals from the root outward. He touches what you hide because everything you hide still affects the life you are trying to build. Stay close, because the next part carries the prayer that breaks through this hidden pain and lifts the weight you have carried in silence for far too long. When the heart reaches a point where it can no longer carry its own weight, heaven steps closer than ever. This is the moment God has been waiting for, the moment where you stop holding everything together by yourself and finally allow Him to touch what has been hurting beneath the surface. Healing begins. The moment surrender becomes more important than silence. You are stepping into that moment right now. Before this prayer begins, let your guard drop. Let the tension slide off your shoulders. Let the truth settle in your soul that you do not need to perform strength in front of God. He already knows the exact place where you break when no one is watching. He knows what you carry. He knows why you hide it. He knows how much it has cost you, and He is ready to lift it. Now breathe and listen. Father, step into this heart with your gentleness. Touch the wound that has stayed hidden for far too long. Reach into the memories that still bring pressure, confusion, or fear. Bring light into the corners of the soul that have been locked away. Let your presence move through every layer of pain. Let your mercy wash through every scar that never had a chance to heal. Lord, speak to the areas where silence has lived for years. Speak to the disappointment that was never processed. Speak to the betrayal that left a mark. Speak to the loss that created emptiness. Speak to the version of this person who had to stay strong even when their strength was breaking. Remind them that they are safe in your hands. Remind them that nothing they feel is too heavy for you to hold. God, lift the weight that has been pressing against their spirit. Release the tightness in their chest. Remove the heaviness that has followed them through their days and their nights. Break the agreement they made with pain when they believed they had no other choice. Break the lie that healing is impossible. Break the lie that vulnerability is dangerous. Break the lie that they must endure everything alone. Father, I ask you to breathe peace into the very place where hurt once lived. Replace fear with clarity. Replace sorrow with strength. Replace isolation with connection. Replace the broken pieces with a deeper sense of identity. Restore the softness that pain tried to steal. Restore the joy that became distant. Restore the courage that life tried to silence. Heal the root, Lord. Heal the memory. Heal the emotion. Heal the belief. Heal the part of them that stopped trusting. Heal the part of them that stopped hoping. Heal the part of them that stopped feeling safe. Let this prayer become the moment where the weight begins to lift, the pressure loosens, and the soul begins to breathe again. Let your presence settle on them like a warm hand over a wounded heart. Let this be the night, the moment, the turning point where healing moves from something they wished for into something they finally experience. Stay here, because the next topic shows how the heart begins to transform once God touches the deepest places. When God reaches into the deepest part of your pain, something quiet begins to shift inside you. It doesn't start with fireworks or sudden dramatic change. It begins with a softness, a calm you haven't felt in a long time, a sense that the tightness in your chest has loosened, that the noise inside your mind has lowered, that your soul is finally beginning to exhale after years of holding its breath. Healing rarely arrives with a shout. It arrives with a breath. This is the stage where your heart starts remembering what peace feels like. You notice it in small moments. The thoughts that used to overwhelm you lose some of their control. The memories that once stung instantly now pass through your mind without the same sharpness. The pressure that felt permanent begins to dissolve. God doesn't just remove pain. He restores your ability to feel safe inside your own spirit again. As healing begins to settle in, clarity returns. You start seeing yourself differently. You begin recognizing that the pain you carried wasn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of how deeply you feel, how fiercely you love, how much you've endured without letting go of your faith. Your identity starts shifting from wounded to restored, from surviving to rebuilding, from breaking to rising. The heaviness that once dictated your decisions loses its influence. Old emotional patterns weaken. The need to hide softens. Your heart begins to trust again, not instantly, but steadily. You begin imagining a future without the weight that once shaped your days. Even your body feels different. Tension releases, breathing deepens, sleep becomes easier. The spiritual and emotional alignment God is restoring starts flowing into your physical well-being. Healing also transforms how you connect with others. You no longer cling out of fear, push away out of pain, or protect yourself from every possibility of hurt. You move with more wisdom, more stability, more confidence. You give without draining yourself. You love without losing yourself. You stand without falling into old emotional shadows. Most importantly, healing shifts your relationship with God. You no longer approach Him from desperation, but from trust. You realize He was present in every silent battle, every hidden tear, every long night. You begin to understand that His goal was never to expose your pain, but to lift it. He didn't bring you this far to leave you undone. He brought you here to rebuild you from the inside out. This transformation isn't a finish line. It's a beginning. The start of a chapter where your soul carries less weight, your mind carries more clarity, and your heart carries deeper strength. Healing is not a moment. It's the breath that carries you into the life God always intended for you to live.